Go ahead.
All right. Well, good morning, Taylor. All
Good
right.
morning.
I got a joke for you. Why did the
Okay.
man refuse to ask for directions?
Why?
Because real men never get lost. They just take a long time to discover themselves.
Oh, I hate that joke so much. So much.
You have like moral qualms with that joke.
I do. I do. We're talking today about something that you and I think, both have strong feelings about, perhaps not in the same direction, though. Today, we are talking about toxic masculinity, something that a lot of people have a lot of feelings about, these
hmm
two men very much included.
Yeah, when
So,
you first introduced this topic, this was your idea, not mine. But when
well, it actually was a request from somebody who listened to the podcast.
yes, oh yeah, that's right. That was wonderful that we actually got involvement and someone suggested that. What was interesting was that as Taylor and I talked about it, I think I have a naturally sensitive disposition towards this term. I have a lot of opinions about it. I don't agree with a lot of the ways that it's used, and so I came at it kind of harshly. And Taylor, you came at it from somewhere else, but it seems like much like much like politics, you go too far in one direction, you'll end up in the same place.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, well, there's a lot of ways we can get started. Excuse me. A lot of ways we can get started on this. And one of them I think that is really important is to acknowledge the least toxically male thing in the world. Trigger warning. This is going to have a
Oh,
lot of things that people are going to be really upset about.
yeah. I think people have opinions.
Yeah, and I want to really give you room as well, Pete, to, like, you said you wrote down that you wanted to acknowledge this as well. So, like, what
Oh,
is it
like
that you want to say about toxic masculinity as a concept before we jump into everything else?
okay. Well, first, I recognize in that like I'm a intellectually and emotionally aware person that I am reactive to the concept of toxic masculinity. So I can get worked up about it, and I think from where it comes from is the feeling of automatically being attacked.
Hmm.
And we have as humans this demand resistance. As I work with patients and um, they want to fight against something that is not attacking them, but they feel attacked, I give this demonstration.
Hmm.
If you hold your fist out to somebody and you say, hold out your fist, and then they're holding out their fist and you're holding out your fist, if you just contact their fist and start to push them, they will hold their ground. They will push back.
Hmm.
And because they just assume that's what they're supposed to be doing. So with no words spoken at all, I am pushing their fist and they are pushing against me, and we push and push as hard as we can until I'm pushed back in my chair. And it's a funny, like, what the heck is going on moment. And I ask, why are you pushing me? And they're
Hmm.
like, what? Like, I'm not, you're pushing me. I'm pushing because you pushed me. And I go, exactly. You're pushing because I pushed you. So I realized that in this moment, I hate that phrase. I'm trying to try not to say that ever again in this moment. But I realized for this
What's wrong
situation,
with saying in this moment?
I just had a teacher once who was just very like, oh man, very
In this
unpleasant to be in his
exquisitely
class.
vivid moment.
Yes, exactly, like that, just like this exquisitely vivid moment. That kind of guy. He said it all the time.
Gotcha.
Anyway, in this situation, I am pushing back on something that doesn't necessarily push me. So that feeling of being attacked, if someone says masculinity, toxic masculinity in my ears sounds like masculinity is toxic.
Hmm.
So that is something I value about myself, and it's something I want to foster. And I like that about myself, being masculine. I want to be more like that, and then I'm somehow being told that it's evil or it's harmful. Makes me very reactive.
Okay. And I think that a lot of people probably feel very similarly that to say that toxic masculinity exists is to say that masculinity is inherently toxic.
Yeah, exactly. Toxic masculinity sounds like masculinity is toxic. That's the problem.
And I disagree with the idea that that's what it's saying. And I think this is the beginnings of where Pete and I kind of diverge around this particular topic. I think that by the time we're by the time we're done with this conversation, we'll be on the same page ish. And that does not mean I'm going to convince Pete and Pete's going to convince me. But I think the page we're going to be on is an understanding of the other person's point of view and being okay with whatever differences there may be. And I also really do think we're almost basically entirely on the same page. Just we're using different language, and so it doesn't feel like it. So that's how I'm approaching this.
Well, I also want to know: you've never felt any reactivity towards if somebody said toxic masculinity thrown at you, you wouldn't feel reactive to that then?
Not right now. I don't remember ever being particularly bothered by the phrase. I think I don't want to say that for certainty because I could be wrong. Maybe I was super reactive to it when I was younger. But I don't feel reactive to it now. And I think there's different reasons I can say that. And some of them are kind of like douchebaggy and some of them are not. The douchebaggy thing is like, well, it's because I don't feel threatened by it. So what's the big deal? And that's kind of dismissive and reductionistic and all that stuff. And there is still some truth in that, though. The idea of toxic masculinity, I feel male, I feel masculine. I don't feel like I'm toxic. Therefore, I don't think people are talking about who I inherently am. I think there are aspects of masculinity that can become toxic and they exist within the framework of an understanding of masculinity and all that stuff. But we can kind of get to that in a moment. So no, I don't feel nervous about when people say that's toxic masculinity. My first thought is interesting. Let's figure out where the toxicity is so we can get rid of it. Because I don't want to be, I'm a man. I don't want to pretend like being a man is bad because it's not. There's nothing inherently wrong with being male. There's nothing inherently wrong with quote unquote masculinity, masculine things.
Well, let me. When you say there's nothing wrong with being a man, one of the things that I found, I mentioned to you in our if we had a green room, that's where we would have talked about this. But in 2005, in the Journal of Clinical Psychology, a researcher came up with a definition that's been used, I found, several times in the last 20 years. But he said, toxic masculinity involves the need to aggressively compete and dominate others and encompasses the most problematic proclivities in men. These same male proclivities foster resistance to psychotherapy. So he was talking, his paper was on barriers to mental health treatment in prison. So he was basically saying the way men naturally are makes it hard, if they go to extreme, makes it hard for them to engage in therapy. And the way men are is what he said, aggressively competitive and dominating others and encompass.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I don't like that.
Well, if you say there's nothing wrong with being a man, this is what it sounds like, is when he says the most problematic proclivities in men, saying if you take what is common among this 50% of the population and you take it to an extreme, that's toxic. And he's
take it to an
defining.
extreme, yes, but it's not because it exists, right? It's because it's taken to an extreme. That I have a big problem with.
That researcher pointed out that 90% of people in jail and prison are men because we do not. Those problems in men lead to jail. Like the problems in.
There's so many problems with what he's saying and how he's framing it. I think are disingenuous and harmful to the concept of what it is to be a man. These men aren't in jail because they're men, right? So first and foremost, someone's not like, hey, that guy, penis. This man needs to be in jail. He's got a penis.
Lock him up.
No, that's ridiculous. Ridiculous. These men are in jail because they're men. No, that's ridiculous. Absurd, even.
Well, because 90% of people in jail and prison in the United States are men, he's saying that if you are a toxic female, whatever that means, we haven't talked about that yet, but if you're toxic femininity does not lead to such social social ostracization. Like you don't get in big trouble for being a toxic female. You just get looked at sideways or something.
Sure. I think that is a different conversation for a different day.
Okay, different conversation. But in general, saying
it is a real thing.
If you're yeah, actually, now that I see about this, most problematic proclivities in men, meaning if you are more of a man, you're probably going to go to jail.
See, I disagree with that. I don't think that's what it's saying at all. I think what it's saying is that there are a lot of men in prison. I think society is set up to be aware of bad behavior from men in a different way than it's aware of bad behavior in women, for better and or for worse. And that's again a different conversation for a different day. I don't think that men are in jail because they're men. I don't think they're in jail because they're manly men, because I know a lot of super manly men who are the sweetest human beings in the world. You being one of them. You're a very manly man. You work with your hands a lot. You make things. You create things. You take care of your family. You're literally rebuilding your house right now.
Yeah, that
You're
case in
extremely
point.
masculine, and you are not in jail. Is that because you haven't been caught yet?
It depends on who you ask, but generally, generally, I don't do illegal things.
Yeah,
So we can disagree with that guy saying that being more of a man than other men does not put you in jail.
I think if I want to work with his definition, which I'm not entirely sure that I do, but if I were to want to, I would specifically work with the concept of the need to dominate. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be in control of a situation.
Mhm.
Domination is a very different meaning and word, though. That is where it becomes a problem. I know when we were green rooming this up last night, talking about this,
Yeah,
um, my definition of toxic masculinity is not really attached to domination. It's more around men have to be a certain way, and if they're not, that needs to be fixed, right? Like men don't cry is a very famous load of hot garbage that I
yeah.
particularly
Big
hate.
boys don't cry.
Or you know, men don't express their feelings. Men aren't allowed to talk about their feelings. Well, that's actually not true and is very dangerous to a man's well-being to say that he has to keep all his emotions inside. The problem is when you have people enforcing ideas that men can only exist in a very specific, narrow set of definitions to be okay as men. I hate that. That's toxic masculinity to me. It's, I think, extremely dangerous.
Oh, well, you're talking then about gender differences. If you're saying you have to stoically maintain these very rigid gender roles, and despite what a man, by all accounts, says, I'm doing this and I am the definition of a man, and you're telling me I'm not, that's the problem.
I think gender roles taken too far, yes,
Okay.
which I can and can go towards women as well. The idea that
Hmm.
women can't be assertive, that women can't be strong, that a woman's place is in the kitchen, all these stupid garbage things that come from a toxically masculine point of view and also encompass toxic femininity, which again is a very different conversation for a different day.
Oh man, I'm sorry. This just segues perfectly into it. There was a gender-based violence researcher. She's been
Mhm.
working at this for 20 years. Her name is Carol Harrington, and 4 years ago she wrote an article saying, "What is toxic masculinity and why does it matter?" She wrote this, but her definition, she says, accusations of toxic masculinity often work to maintain gender hierarchies and individualized responsibility for gender inequalities to certain bad men. Meaning, what you were saying, it works to maintain gender hierarchies, and
Mhm.
it's reductive. It oversimplifies all gender problems to finger pointing certain bad men. You point out
Yes.
those people, and you can just say toxic masculinity to that guy. He is the problem. You're like, well, no, it's actually a whole slew of cultural problems that are convoluted and complex, and we're just going to say toxic masculinity. So she has I guess, a problem with the social narrative of toxic masculinity, the way it's used, than actually addressing the complexity of it.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, too, when I'm looking at articles, the earliest ones, and a lot of them, were coming from non-scientific sources like Parenting Magazine and journalism like The Atlantic, stuff like that. And I think only after it was addressed socially, and it was like coined by, I don't know, angry people, then it's had to be studied. It has to be brought up, and you have to research it and be like, is this actually a thing? Like, is this something we need to
And
study? So I
I think
think,
this kind of highlights again a different approach that you and I have to this, which is I think it existed before it was studied. I think that it was a thing, and I think that experientially, toxic masculinity is an experiential issue, right? Because I mean, like, I want to talk about gender roles. There are certain places in Africa where the most manly men wear long, flowy robes that look like dresses and wear
mm,
makeup, and that's like the manliest of the manly are the people with the facial makeup and the dresses. Are they less manly than they would be in America? I don't know. They probably super manly but the idea that
But
it's
it's
just this
culturally
is why it
defined
bothers
then.
me. It's culturally defined. Toxic masculinity needs to exist within a context, and it's not just I'm a man, therefore I'm bad, because the expression of manhood can be so vast and varied. Toxic masculinity is when the expression of manhood becomes a yardstick, and if you don't measure up to this manhood yardstick, then you're not a man, and you're less of a man, or you're just it's ridiculous. My viewpoint is I'm a man, therefore everything I do inherently is masculine.
Well, there's got to be some aspects of, well, they talk about and that's pretty ambiguous. But I would say that I have some naturally feminine traits that I accept, and to say everything I do is therefore masculine would then mean that when I do something much like my wife, then she is masculine because I did it, so she's masculine. But there's got to
She's a
be.
woman, so she does it in a feminine way.
So
That's
we're
what I'm
both working on
saying.
the kitchen now. We're both working on the kitchen. We're mudding the walls. We're taping the walls and everything.
Mm.
It would be up to someone with a yardstick to say construction is a manly activity, and then my wife
With
is
a
doing
box,
it.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah. So now my wife is doing it. Oh crap! Like, what does that mean? My
It
wife
means that the
now.
definition is bad because obviously non-masculine people can work in construction. It's a
So
bad yardstick, is what that
right.
means.
Okay. So it's a bad yardstick. So what is it then? I mean, to say masculine is, it can't be aggressiveness and it can't be competition because you have women
Well, are we talking
athletes.
about masculinity or are we talking about toxic masculinity?
Well, you're talking about toxic masculinity today, but that means masculinity then demanded. Whoever's holding the yardstick then is toxic.
Yeah, and my point of view is that the idea of defining masculinity by a set of actions is ridiculous.
Oh, so it's not behavioral.
Masculinity, I mean, this opens a door to talking about what it means to be transgender. What is it to be a man? What is it to be a woman?
Hmm.
And again, I want to make a really hard line between talking about what it is to be masculine and what it is to be toxically masculine.
Yes.
And I understand we need to have a working definition of masculinity and kind of a bigger picture way. I would say that masculinity is I just don't think it's defined by action, by things that you do. I think it's a way of being. I approach things in a masculine way because I'm a man. And my masculinity can include being direct. It can be uh, strength. It can be domination. It can be all these things, but it also can be taking care. Like I love my children. I give my daughter a hug and a kiss every night.
So
Is that not
so
masculine though?
being masculine and feminine then transcends being a male and a female.
I think so.
Okay.
I But that's a different conversation for a different day.
Well, I don't know because it sounds then like when I say toxic masculinity, if I'm saying someone's attacking me as a man, that's the crux of it. It is not. Um, they're not saying I'm not a man. They're not saying I'm not. Um,
That's what toxic masculinity is, though, right? I mean, you're saying you're being feminine by doing feminine things. That feels
mhm.
like an attack on your manhood
Like
because you're not a woman, you're a man.
um, I, like I told you, as we are talking about this, I, I initially did not want to work with kids.
Hmm.
I was really troubled by child abuse, and I knew that it was a hot button topic for me personally. And my first job in community mental health, they put me in the children, in with the kids, the youth section, and so I had to work with kids almost exclusively for over a
Hmm.
year. And
Samesies.
yeah, man, I just it was like the one thing I told myself I wouldn't do. I found it very rewarding. Actually, I gained a lot of skills, which I was grateful for, but I cried a lot. I cried
Hmm.
sometimes with a patient who was telling me about their abuse and they were glossing over it like it was buying bananas on a Tuesday. Like they were just telling me about the most horrific things, and then they saw an adult reacting the way that I did. I couldn't withhold. Like I don't know if it was professional or it was not. There's an argument among therapists like much how much of a blank slate you are for your patients. But I couldn't stop. It was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible, and I'd have tears running down my face. It was either with the client or it was at home.
Hmm.
And I think you've you've experienced that where I'm coming home and having like a really really hard time. So is being tearful and like emotionally overwhelmed because of child abuse and trauma, um, does that is that feminine or masculine? You're saying
It's
it
human.
doesn't matter. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you're a
human.
human being. It's a tribute to your humanity that you can look into suffering like that and
No,
be
that
moved by
well
it.
then that's my point. We're not having a discussion then about masculinity or femininity. We're talking about humanity. So if somebody is my biggest qualm, honestly, when we started talking about this topic, my biggest qualm with the term was that it was unspecific. You could say, um, this is toxic masculinity. If I'm talking over someone in a class, which has happened, I'm talking over someone in a class, in a social work class or something, and cohort members of my class hear me talking over them, or we get in a heated debate, and I find myself like maybe getting a little louder or leaning forward on the table or something, and a female member of my cohort would be like, "Can you stop? You're being very toxic right now." And that shut
Mm.
down the conversation. That was like it. I'm like, okay. And then everyone turns to me like I'd done something wrong because we were in this heated debate. Like, can you stop? That's toxic. And I was like, wow. I was talking over people. I was disagreeing with people. I was arguing with people because I didn't agree with what we're just having a debate. And so my qualm was, what do you mean by that? Well, it's unspecific. Am I being too loud? Am I being aggressive? Do you feel unsafe? Am I hitting the table and am I being violent? Like, what exactly is it that I'm doing that is quote toxic masculinity? Just saying that shuts down the conversation. It just ends it. It doesn't open it. So that's why I would prefer someone to say, "Can you please stop? You are being too aggressive. Can you please,
Hmm.
okay, let's quiet it down. We need to be respectful. You're being disrespectful when you interrupt people," or something like that to me. But they didn't. They just said, "Toxic, done, write me off, over."
Right. And I would say that I have a couple thoughts about that. One is that this is exactly what we're trying to talk about, which is that toxic masculinity is a thing and it is not a thing. The thing that it is not is normal human expression. Just like anger is amoral, masculinity is
Mm-hmm.
by definition amoral because it's not a choice. You are masculine because you're a man. You're doing things in a masculine way because that's how can you do anything but in a masculine way? The idea that she gets to define for you what is toxically masculine or shut down conversations because she's uncomfortable with a part of who you are, I think is unfair and disingenuous. And I think it's why this conversation we're having is so important because I think toxic masculinity can and does exist. I do not think
Mm.
that it is what people generally think that it is. And I do not think that it can or should be used to shut down conversation because if you do that, what you're saying is you as a man do not get to talk. And
That
that
is the
is a
problem. Is
problem.
it's it's um it's the problem because it's weaponized, and I think it was
Yep.
weaponized first. Well, you say it existed before it was socially popular, but I see a lot
Totally.
of to say, why are you mansplaining things to me? This is toxic masculinity. Um,
Hmm.
you could just
But
end
see,
with like, stop
let's talk about
interrupting me.
mansplaining. But mansplaining is a real thing, right? Mansplaining is when you talk to a woman like she's too stupid to understand it. It's kind of like we talk about gaslighting. People will use the term gaslighting to say like you're making me uncomfortable,
Yeah,
completely
yeah.
misusing the phrase. Mansplaining, I think, and I think we could probably prove fairly easily, can exist pretty easily. Like mansplaining is a real thing that really happens to
Okay,
real
so
people.
but that is patronizing. You can say you're patronizing me. To say
Right, but
mansplaining is an easier way to say that.
mansplaining is necessary as it, I think, because it includes the concept of I as a man am right because you're a woman and you're not.
So you
That's
could
a
say
core component of what mansplaining is.
you're mansplaining. You'd have to know the intention behind it then. You could say he is mansplaining because he's sexist, is basically what it is.
Right, but then the point of a definition is to encapsulate a concept with a smaller phrase, right?
Okay. So when you say mansplaining, that then say you're mansplaining to me, it
Specifically,
means you're patronizing me because I'm a woman. That's what
yes,
she is saying.
specifically and explicitly, the gender dynamic is such that the man considers himself to be above the woman and therefore has to dumb things down for her for it to make sense to her.
Okay. So you'd have to
Because
stand behind that and be like, you're being sexist. Why are you calling it mansplaining? Well, because I'm a woman and you're a man and you're patronizing me.
Yeah, you're talking to me like I'm too stupid to understand because I'm a silly little woman. Now, we can get into whether or not that is the intention and the importance of intention. But again, what we're trying to do right now is just define what it is and how people experience it, not whether or not they're right in every instance that they have expressed it.
Right. Okay. So that makes sense. Well, you would have to assume their intention, and there's always danger in assuming. But if you say you are mansplaining this to me, the assumption is you're patronizing me because of the gender dynamic. That's what
Yes,
it would be.
that is the assumption.
Okay.
In toxic masculinity, the assumption is there's a way a man is supposed to be. You are operating outside of that and are therefore bad.
Yeah.
So are we on the same page with that definition, I guess, before we even go on?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm okay with that.
Okay, cool. Me too. And I do think that toxic masculinity, I do feel like it's a very real thing. I do think it's a very dangerous thing, and it really does bother me. And I do think that it's used in a way that shuts down conversation in unhealthy ways. It's a way of like saying, I don't have to listen to what you're saying because you're being a toxic man right now. Well, no, maybe I actually have some good points.
Yeah.
And
And
maybe my delivery isn't good. I'm open to that idea, but it can't just be you're being toxically male,
I've
therefore.
I've always appreciated when you talk about what is the problem and how do we address problems, Taylor, you're always about, well, that's interesting you would say that. Let's talk about let's talk about that. You're always trying to draw people in more to a hot topic than push them away. And I'm afraid
Hmm.
that the phrase toxic masculinity, people are so like me reactive to it that it will just end a conversation. It's not like I need I need to talk about this and draw you into a conversation. Now it's just about shutting it down. And
I
it is a
mean, we're
way for
30
people.
minutes into the conversation. Has it been shut down yet?
Well, you haven't accused me of anything yet.
Support for the Emotional Men podcast comes from McCary Counseling. McCary Counseling is a great way for folks living in Washington State or Texas to access mental health care. We see folks anywhere in those two places virtually, or if you're just north of Austin in the Round Rock area, happy to see you in person. Reach out to us, our website, mccarycounseling.com, and email us for more details.
So well, if I could bring up one instance of toxic masculinity in the research. So the title of this paper is called "Extremism and Toxic Masculinity: The Man Question Reposed in International Affairs in 2019." This one
Mhm.
researcher went to an extremist rally in the UK, and so she was relying on her field notes, and it was more like a story of what it was like. The author was at a rally held by a group called the English Defence League. It was a far right, now defunct organization, and they were reportedly defending or trying to end sexual exploitation of their local girls, but they were shouting anti-Muslim rhetoric, stuff like that.
Hmm.
So the researcher asked them, wouldn't your message be more powerful without the offensive signs and the anti-Muslim rhetoric? And the leader of that organization said, the lads are angry, their blood is up, and that's how we express ourselves, with
Hmm.
all that anger and vitriol. So she actually talked to a few more people, and
I kind of
she,
wish, by the way, that we're not going to be releasing this straight video, but I kind of wish we were just to see how often I'm like making pained faces and shaking my head like, I don't like that.
yeah, and this assumption that this leader is making that like the lads are angry, their blood is up, and so we are going to be domineering and condescending and hateful and
And toxic masculinity would say that that is the right way they should do it because that's what men do.
that
That's
yes, exactly.
I don't like that.
So yeah, oh, I try to give myself bumpers on topics to bring in my mind, and so many things that are I think happening in the world today that are hoorah and good old boys and
Hmm.
that make me sick because
I
it's
will say one of
supported
my
by
favorite things,
people.
by the way, about being in the South, well, I'm on the doorway to the South. I wouldn't say that Texas is the South. It's right there, though. I love when you see these idiots being super like, "Whoa, we're gonna go." The names that people come up with to describe them are amazing. And my personal favorite is Y'all Qaeda. Delicious.
Oh man, y'all, that's chef's kiss.
Watch out, Y'all Qaeda's in the town.
Oh man, I think Tennessee, the closest we get are bikers with the American flag riding on their backs.
You
These
guys have
huge
Nazis,
freaking red
literal
backs.
Nazis flying Nazi flags on the Capitol steps.
Okay,
Sometimes, as
fine.
does Texas, as does California.
We
But
got the
like, it
Appalachians here,
exists
so
everywhere.
a lot of
Oh,
moonshine out
that's right.
here.
Ooh,
Yeah.
moonshine and banjos.
Um, let's see. Oh, she had said, uh, here, I'll just read this quote. More
Sure.
recently, the plurality of masculinities has been acknowledged. A study of subordinate masculinities, subordinate is a qualitative term, has often
Yes.
been preoccupied with, quote, problem men and has been formative in work on male crime and violence. Basically, all masculinities are not created equal.
Mm. See, there's that face I'm making again. I
Equal,
don't like
yeah,
it.
exactly. Now we're getting into the like all masculinities are equal, just some are more equal than others.
The idea
But
that like my masculine, so Pete and I are very different men in that Pete is very good with his hands. Pete is I think Pete is a sensitive, I think you're a sensitive man. I think I'm a sensitive man too, so I think we have that in common.
mhm.
But I think that your sensitivity, as you brought up earlier, you kind of used as like is that very masculine to cry when you hear about child abuse? I think, well, yeah, you're a sensitive man. That makes sense to me. The idea that like you're more or less masculine than me because of the things you do is mind-boggling to me. I can't do what you do in terms of like I'm terrible with making things. I can't build things. I can't do it. I've never been very good at it. I have a hard time following directions. If I see numbers, my brain just turns off.
Yes,
I'm
but
I think stereotypically,
create different things.
yeah, absolutely. I do. I think I'm a very creative person. I cannot operate within creativity bounds. I can't operate within number creativity. Like I'm not good with math. I didn't get a PhD in part at least because the idea of studies, I just can't. My brain doesn't work that way. Am I less of a man because I sit with people and talk about their feelings all day? Fuck no.
Yeah.
Anyone who says that to me can go eat a dick. I just mm-mm. That drives me nuts. I am a man and I'm a sensitive man and I help people in a sensitive way. Am I less of a man than the dude who's out there like injecting steroids into his butt so he can lift heavy objects? No, that's ridiculous. The idea that Pete is less of a man because he writes poetry and children's books, what is that garbage? Get out of here with that. Pete is a
Mhm.
man. Pete is a man's man. Pete makes stuff. And my wife, I was talking to her about this. And she said, depending how far back in history you go, it doesn't take much to get to the point where that is the definition of being a man. I mean,
Oh
Alice in
yes.
Wonderland, Peter Pan, all these like Winnie the Pooh. These are male stories written by men for children.
hmm
That's masculinity.
I it reminds me of I didn't think about this before. In my office, in my therapy office, my theme is knights and dragons and fantasy stuff because that's the theme
Mhm.
of the kids stories I tell. But I collect knights, and so I have a French gendarme, I have the English medieval knights, I got a few Spanish knights, just pictures and models and stuff. And I tell people I like knights because they were the rich guys, they were the powerful men, they were the lords who could afford a suit of armor, and yet they picked flowers, they wrote poetry, they wrote epic
Mhm.
love songs for their loved ones, and like they talk about the sunshine, and then they went to war and they killed people and cut off their heads. Like there was this crazy dichotomy between um, what we consider a men and what knights did at home versus what we consider men and what knights did on crusade. Like what we agree with
Mhm.
one, but we don't agree with another one, and yet knights, they were the embodiment of both.
Yeah, the idea that there's a separation because this is what I'm talking about. This is like the core of it. They are men. What they do is masculine because they are men when they do it, and it encompasses an entire breadth of humanity and experience. And I think this brings up something else that I want to kind of hit on, which is my personal definition of what it is to be a man. What is it to grapple with
Oh, like
manhood
your
in
personal
general?
thing. Okay.
My personal thing. There's no research behind this. I didn't look this up. This is just from lots of conversations with lots of people, male and female, about what it is to grapple with manhood. At its core, masculinity is a question of power, power that is unearned and undeserved, but still owned. I, through no fault of my own, am 6'4", 235, and am a big guy. And I can use my weight and my strength, and I can push people around. I have height, which for whatever reason, people look at me and go, I can trust this guy. And I
Yeah.
try and live up to that. I really do try and live up to that. I want to be as trustworthy as humanly possible, but I did not earn that power. I did nothing to get it. It just, I have it. What do I do with that power is the core of who I am as a man.
Wow, that
Not
was
how I
profound.
express it, but what do I do with the power that I have? Pete, you are the same thing.
Well,
You have
I'm
power.
thinking about the physical power that I was born into and
Hmm.
how much trust that has. Before I got married, actually, one of my leaders we had a little interview and he said, "When your wife says yes, or when your fiance, when your girlfriend says yes to get married to you, what that means." And he went through the meanings of the yes. It was like, yes, you will never hurt me. Yes,
Hmm.
you will not leave me in a worse situation than when you found me. Yes, you will treat like what the yeses meant. And at the time, being a young guy, I was like, wow, like what do you mean I won't hurt her? But the reality is that I have shoot
You have power.
50 pounds on my wife and 4 or 5 inches, and I can hurt her emotionally and physically, and I don't. You just don't every day.
This is something that is really worth bringing up, which is that women live in a state where, and I can't fathom this because of how big I am, but women live in a state where literally half of the population could, if they so desired, physically make them do whatever they wanted to at any point in time. I don't have that problem. No man is going to come up to me and like try and push me out of the way, and unless he's bigger than me, he's not going to physically be able to. Because of how my body was formed in the womb, I just have more muscle and I know how to use it in a way that is big. But like my wife is a foot shorter than me, and her experience of the world is that half the people are stronger than her, are bigger than her, and she kind of operates on their good graces.
Yeah.
Where if a man around her kind of decides he's going to be a douchebag, he can ruin her.
Well, we have laws and social norms that are supposed to be these bumpers, but they are just abstract. They're
As long as
just
the cops show up in time, they're really useful. But if they don't,
yeah.
too bad.
Yeah, exactly. And like I assume that you're going to feel bad if you push me down when I didn't, you know, make you dinner on time. I assume that that's just something that will make you feel bad, but heck, there's a lot of trust in that assumption. Like
There is.
I'm going to just assume man, I can't imagine living in a world of people. I'm actually 8 inches taller than my wife, 8, 9 on a good day.
Hmm.
So like someone 9 inches taller than me would be kind of like hanging out in a world of tailors.
Yes, exactly. Like, what if, Pete, everyone was like me to you, except you didn't have the muscle mass that you have?
So we're talking about the inner dynamics of where toxic masculinity comes from and the gender dynamic. And you had written a note that toxic masculinity can't exist in a vacuum.
Yep.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean is that if a man is in existence by himself, his toxic masculinity is hard to enforce because what are you enforcing it against? But in our society, in our culture, like you and I, again, let's just stick it to you and me, right?
Mhm.
There is an understanding of what a man is and what a man is not. And within that context, the attributes of your maleness can become toxic and used as a cudgel against other people. But it's within the context of our society. So, our version of toxic masculinity, the things that we do that is, generally speaking, a gendered male action, is different from culture to culture. So, a toxic male activity from like an Inuit tribe might be different from a toxic male activity from the Bay Area,
Yeah.
for example. It's a different experience being a toxic man, specifically embracing and embodying toxic male attributes, which is a male attribute taken to an extreme to hurt other people, by definition is dependent upon societal gendered norms and roles.
Well, it's not just about then taking it to hurt other people, but demanding that other people be a certain way. It sounds like
Yes,
I mean, the ongoing metaphor we have is that you have a yardstick, and it's not the person being measured that is the toxic thing. It's the
it's the
person with
yardstick.
the yardstick. Yeah.
It's the yardstick itself, and maybe the person wielding the yardstick can become toxic by touching the yardstick too much. But the yardstick, in my mind, is the problem, at least in part. And then also the way it's used instead of measuring to beat. I'm whipping you with the yardstick instead of saying, huh,
Oh,
this is
yes,
interesting. You're
exactly.
not fitting what I expected. Instead of it being a curiosity of like, oh, I thought a man was, not what you are, but here you are as a man. I wonder what's wrong with my measurement. It's no, 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 get back in line. you need to get back in line because you're not a man and I am because I have the stick. Again, power.
Power. There's some fear too if the cultural norms are defining masculinity then, and to say culture masculinity in America looks a certain way and in Africa looks a different way. That means that I have to be wary of what culture thinks of me. If I, if I'm thinking of toxic masculinity, it's culturally enforced, therefore it's culturally defined.
Mhm.
Like, am I a man? I don't know. Let me look around. Yeah, okay. I think I'm doing manly things. I think I'm good. I think I'm a man. Or how
Yeah,
dare I, I'm going to wear a dress today
yeah.
just because
Which
I want
I'm
to.
honestly a little jealous of people who get to wear sundresses because they look so comfortable.
Oh, well, okay.
I don't think I can pull it off. I don't want to wear a dress, but I sometimes like I do wish I could wear. Anyway,
No,
we'll get into
I do wish that men had more colorful options. I was thinking of buying
yes,
a salmon colored suit to go to church, but black
dude.
and blue, that's it. And men and women have like colors and patterns and dynamics, and I'm like, I want to wear a kilt just because it's different. But no, that would be incredibly off-putting for everyone around me.
But see, I would say that's exactly what toxic masculinity is because the problem is not the dress or the kilt or the pants or the color. The problem is the understanding of how people will perceive you as a man if you do operate outside of their preconceived notions.
Yes, who was it? Who was that celebrity that wore a dress to a gala at one point? Harry, something I forget.
Harry Styles.
Yes, he wore a dress
I
that
was
was
gonna say, you mean Jennifer
huge.
Lopez? You mean every single woman ever?
I'm sorry,
More
no,
specificity, Pete.
it was a male who wore a dress in a public event and
Mhm.
garnered a lot of social attention because of that. And he just said something like, "I wanted to wear it" or something. He's not homosexual, I don't believe. He just wanted to
Mm-mm.
wear a dress.
And even if he was, who cares? Right.
No,
And I know
no.
that's not what you're saying, but like it's
Well,
kind
I
of
mean,
irrelevant, the idea of a dress and homosexuality
well,
being
I'd
connected.
assume that
It's
like
not.
someone who's homosexual would be more effeminate and then would want to wear a dress more likely than somebody who doesn't proclaim to be homosexual. That's what
As
I
long as you don't go
assume.
to Scotland or Tonga or Samoa, where
Okay, okay, fine.
see, this is what I'm talking about. Like, it's such a cultural question. Is it girly to wear a non-enclosed pant covering? I don't know. Are you in Scotland? Are you in the Polynesian nations? The
Yeah,
idea that like those men are less manly because their legs aren't wrapped in cloth, it's ridiculous.
and even if I was from there and came to America and continued to wear my cultural norms, I think people would forgive me for that, and it might even be interesting. But if
Yeah.
I, for some reason, subscribe to being an American in American culture and then do that, then it's not okay.
I think the only reason it's not okay is because people just aren't used to the experience. I have a good buddy. He actually, so we were in Europe at
You
the
know
same
what?
time.
I'm gonna buy us a pair of kilts, and
I
you and I
would
can
love
wear it.
that.
That would be awesome.
I would love
Challenging
that.
gender norms.
But see, that's just it. That's not because it's a kilt. Like people are like, what, you're wearing a skirt? No, it's a kilt. Oh, okay. People just accept it.
Mm.
So a buddy of mine who I met in Europe at the same time as I met you, his name is Luke Markham. I love him to death. Love him to death. He came to my wedding in a kilt.
Oh,
And it was the coolest because like it was like a really nicely made one. He had the pouch with the
oh, like
fur
a
and like the
formal kilt,
colors,
like a formal
a
like right.
formal
Okay,
kilt.
yeah.
He was
Those.
wearing a skirt, if you want to be a dick about
Well,
it, which you're
yeah.
not.
No, but a kilt is. I mean, my family's from Scotland. I keep trying to get one.
Exactly. So is Luke less of a man because he wore a kilt to my wedding? And for context, who Luke is a polyglot who taught himself Russian by listening to it. One of the smartest men I've
Wow.
ever met in my life. Luke makes cabinets for a living and lives in a haunted house.
What a resume. That's pretty cool.
He's so dope, dude. I love Luke so much. He'll never listen to this. I might just send this to him and be like,
Just
hey, I
send
just
him
want you to
this
know that I
one.
said I love you publicly. And he'll be like, don't do that.
Okay, so I guess the problem here is what I'm coming away from this is that if somebody uses the phrase toxic masculinity, it opens a conversation. It's not supposed to close it.
Hopefully.
And if they use it to close a conversation, then they're the ones holding the yardstick. They're holding a yardstick basically.
And using it to whip people, I would
Yeah,
say.
exactly.
And that's kind of toxic behavior too.
That's what I react to is my assumption. Maybe we're coming around here, but my assumption when you say toxic masculinity is that you are standing there holding this yardstick, slapping it in your palm, going, "We're going to talk about this."
Hmm.
And
And
I
what you're saying with that is we're going to beat you until you agree with what I'm
right,
saying.
and I feel like you're pushing my fist, and I'm pushing back and be like, no, this is a fake thing. Tell me I'm mean. Tell me I'm rude. Tell me I am disrespectful. Tell me I'm patronizing. Just don't say toxic to me
Hmm.
because you're holding a yardstick that's completely meaningless.
Yeah. Again, I think toxic masculinity is a real thing. I think it comes away or it comes into existence when there's a gendered conversation taking place where one gender, one masculine is overshadowing feminine. Masculine is the right way because it's strong and it's powerful, and that strength and power needs to be expressed in a very explicit and specific way. And if it's not, you are no longer a man, and I will make sure you fit the definition of masculinity, or I will ostracize you. I
Uh,
hate that so much.
Strength
And I
and
think too
power was
is
an interesting concept as,
yeah,
as
I
as
think
it
about it a
applies
lot.
to toxic masculinity, strength and power, being born into a bigger body with bigger muscles and not a smarter brain, but
No,
you can force people to do what you want
and there, yeah,
despite your
and oh my
dumbness.
goodness, another thing that kind of kills me about this is that I hate when people think that because they feel passionately about something, they're right. It drives me up the wall. I hate it so
Mm.
much. But masculinity in a toxic sense, I have power, I have passion, and I can enforce that power and passion upon you. I must be right.
Oh, that's
No.
unisex too. That
Yes,
I
yes,
find that
absolutely.
everywhere.
That is a unisex thing for sure. There are some things that I think need to be acknowledged, and that is that there is actually a difference between men and women physically. Men do have more muscle. Their bodies are generated to make more power than women's bodies, and power in a different way, I should say, because like I can lift heavier things. I can't physically create life in my body, which is like the most amazing superpower in the world. To even have the capacity to possibly do that is
Yeah.
like ridiculous. That's God level power, quite literally, making life. We contribute to it, but like that's not a power my body has. My powers are different, but my powers are in like physical expressions and ways that like I can make things happen that people who don't have the same power can't. And I think that needs to be acknowledged that there is an inherent power difference physically that has led to societal expectations around power expression that are problematic, I think.
That I was going to ask if you think that that has led to problems in that you can't express yourself, or if someone says toxic masculinity when you want to spend when you want to be aggressive and compete, not in a harmful way, but you want to be aggressive and compete and sweat and everything, and or I get into a heated debate and I want to talk and I get loud and I interrupt, admittedly, because I'm getting
Mhm.
passionate, and they're like, okay, stop being toxic. Done.
Yeah,
So now,
that's a garbage. I hate that. I
well,
hate that
right,
for
but
you.
now my power has been stifled, and so
No.
people look
See, this
for.
is it. Your power has not been stifled in as much as you don't accept what they're telling you to be true. And maybe this is my toxic masculinity, right? But like I don't need your permission to think what I think or to feel what I feel. I'm willing to engage with you around it, and I'm willing to be changed, right? I can't be right. I can't know that I'm right if I'm not willing to be wrong. I have to approach things with the concept of like, you might have information that can change who I am and my understanding of it. If I'm not open to that, I can't rightfully say I'm right because I'm not willing to look at everything to examine it. That's a problem,
Okay, but if
I
someone
think.
doesn't allow you the space to examine it the way they didn't allow me the space to talk, then you are trapped. And so you look
Mm,
for expressions of power in other ways.
perhaps, yeah, but also like if I'm in your situation, and this is again possibly my own toxic thing, meaning like a thing taken too far in a bad way, but I
Don't
don't
worry.
personally think so.
Based on our definition, you cannot mansplain to me.
That's true. That's true. If I'm in a conversation with someone and they say, you're being toxic, you're being a toxic man, I say, define that for me and help me understand it because I disagree. And if they can't do it, I don't pay attention to what they're saying because then I think they're just trying to shut me down because they're uncomfortable instead of because they're right. I have no
Yes,
patience for
so
people
many
who just
times.
want to be right because they're loud. I cannot stand it. And in fact, I don't know if I should even say this. You had a conversation with a cohort member who asked to be on this podcast episode specifically, and I said no. That was my choice. Like I think you were kind of open to it, but I said absolutely not because I have zero interest in having a fight with someone about what it is to be a man. I don't care. You can have your opinion and you can think I'm wrong, but this episode specifically, talking about toxic masculinity as a concept, I do not need someone in here interjecting and saying, yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but. No, I have no interest in that.
Well,
That's a
this is
different
naturally a
conversation for a different
volatile
day.
topic anyway.
Exactly. And maybe here's another like inappropriate line, an unpopular thing. I think that this is not a conversation that anybody else needs to take a part in for today because it's just between you and me. And we're sharing the conversation with other people, but I'm talking to you and you're talking to me. And that's what I wanted.
Mm, that
I
makes
don't
sense.
want somebody else's opinion yet. Not because I think there's no value in it, but you and I think, need to be on the same page when we talk about it. So when someone else does come in, they're not splitting. They're not making us turn against each other. Not that they would be trying to turn us against each other, but you know what I mean? Like, I want to be, you are my partner in this, Pete. I need to be on the same page as you for this to function. And that's the most important thing to me as we talk about these hard topics is
Well,
I want to be on the same page as
the
you.
same page, not meaning that we agree, but that we are both operating from the same rules of engagement.
Exactly. And it'd be cool if we can agree, but even if we don't, I need to it's important to me, Pete, that you know that whether we agree or not, I'm on your side as a human being. We might have different opinions about things, and we do have different opinions about things, but that is secondary to who you are to me as a human being. Those are things that don't really matter a whole lot because you're Pete. That's the value to me. You are the value to me, not your opinions, not the way you talk about them, but you as a human
Mm.
being. That is your value to me. And that needs to be protected.
Which is why we're safe disagreeing on things.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And I do think too, we're honestly, like I said at the beginning of this, we're probably fairly close to being on the same page if we have the same definitions we're working with.
I think some things I've I think what we agree on is that it is not the person doing any sort of behavior that is toxic masculinity. It is the yardstick. Then it is the measurement. It's how do we say that that person is toxic without becoming toxic ourselves? It's the person with the yardstick or the yardstick itself.
Yes, with a caveat. I think that a person can do toxic masculinity. Like they can do that as a thing, and that is a problem. The problem exists within, sure, the way they're measuring it, but also like if they themselves have embodied this idea that they have to enforce the
Oh,
yardstick.
sorry, no, not toxic. Then it was masculinity itself. It was not toxic masculinity. It was masculinity itself. So the person exhibiting whatever behavior is not the problem. The person who is measuring that masculinity, like saying yes or no to the masculine to your level of masculinity, like this study that I said, all
If
masculinities
you,
are not
yeah,
created equal. That's a subjectively
yeah, I think
toxic thing to say.
if you're saying that you're being toxically male because of the way you're doing things, I think it is very fair to say I'm a male doing toxic things, but it's not because I'm a man. It's
Yes,
because I
yes,
suck.
exactly, exactly. That's what I'm saying. There's
But
yeah.
and toxic masculinity is a useful shorthand to talk about gender rolled concepts within society and how they're expressed and used to keep people quote unquote in line with a concept that doesn't need to exist.
I understand the like my thing was like this is socially constructed, it's fake, and then you say, well, yeah, all words are socially constructed. We use that phrase to refer to the gender disparity between the two.
Mm.
Okay, so yes, and yeah, the feeling that I was born with more power than a lot of people is something that takes some time to digest, to appreciate that power that you have as a bigger person.
Hmm. And I think women are in a situation where, like, think about this, Pete. You're 41, 42,
I forget. 42.
42. Okay.
Yeah.
For 42 years, you have never thought about this concept of the power that is embodied with your existence. For the last 42 years, women have been interacting you explicitly aware of exactly that thing you just thought about today.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
That was a big deal. I've been, dare I say, privileged not have to worry about that.
Yes. And that's another thing. I hate people like taking words and making them bad. Oh, don't talk about privilege, ooh, woke. Shut up. These are words that are used to define concepts. Operate within them or don't, but don't pretend the word is bad because you don't like what it says. Go away. That drives me nuts.
Yeah. Um,
I think there's a little thing here that I want to name as well, and this, I don't know if we agree with each other on this or not. I do not think it's sexist to say that men get away with toxic behavior under the guise of masculinity. I think it's true. Men use, I'm a man, therefore, why would I clean the dishes? Get back in the
Right.
kitchen.
That's the same as this guy who said the lads are angry. Their blood is up. That's what they're gonna do.
Exactly.
That's the same thing.
Exactly. I also don't think it's sexist to say that there are women who get away with toxic behavior under the guise of femininity. That is a different conversation for a different day. Toxic behavior attached to gender specific roles exists within the gendered experience on both sides, assuming it's binary on both sides. And binary is a useful shorthand, but that's, again, a different conversation.
Right.
There
But
is
if
toxic
masculinity
masculinity.
and femininity exist then within
They
whatever.
can both be toxic.
Right.
Yes. But unequivocally and without reservation, I do not believe that men's natural characteristics are toxic simply because they exist. I do not buy that. I never have. I can't imagine a world in which someone is toxic because they're male or female. I hate that idea. I push against that idea every chance that I get. Men can be toxic, women can be toxic, everything in between can be toxic, but it's not specifically because of their gendered experience. They can become toxic within that gendered experience, but the existence of gender does not indicate toxicity
Okay.
by default.
Well, we agree on that. That's where I wanted to come in with the idea that you can be a toxic human.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so my assumption, my belief was toxic masculinity is a useless term because you're a toxic human. But what you're saying is it's not a useless term because it approaches the gender power dynamic.
Yes, because it's
Got it.
it's crucial and critical to the definition itself, the gender differences.
I agree with that. I agree with that. If we're going to talk
Two for
about
two.
gender differences, then you have to talk about man, woman. Oh, I wanted to kind of begin this thing with saying we're going to naturally have a sexist conversation. To say that something is masculine and something is feminine means you have to put things on sides of a spectrum, which means if anyone listens to this, they might have really strong reservations with what we call masculine and feminine. Ronda Rousey as a
Mm-hmm.
fighter is aggressive and competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And so you throw that and be like, is that masculine or feminine? And it doesn't. I don't know.
It's
Does it matter?
powerful.
It's
And if
Yes,
power is the
yes,
question of
exactly.
masculinity,
Powerful.
then it is masculine, I guess. But she's a woman doing it, so it can't be masculine.
We're going. It's very, very strong feminine trait.
Yes, she's a woman who could kick my ass.
Yeah.
And does that make me less of a man? No, it makes her really strong and trained in violence.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So So the behavior that I'm wrapped up in was independent of the masculine that I have.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
if someone is using toxic masculinity, again, the understanding is that part of the core dynamic is you are a man who views women as less than, or who views other men as less than if they don't meet a certain level of characteristics and definitions. Which I hate that that's a thing, but I do think it is a thing.
I feel like I would be able to fight back with somebody if they said toxic masculinity, and I would say, what is it about what I'm doing that's toxic that makes you uncomfortable? And they
Hmm.
said something, I'd be like, well, that's kind of independent of my manhood. So that's a really toxic thing for you to say.
I think that if you want to have a good conversation instead of being right, which I'm not saying that you're trying to be right or wrong or have them be right or wrong, but if you want a good conversation around that,
Mhm.
you can just address the power difference and say, what is it about me being a man expressing these characteristics that makes you feel like I'm attacking you as a woman?
Yeah, that's because that's what's important. We're talking about the gender power dynamic using these
Hmm.
words.
Yes. And so if someone tries to shut down a conversation, like typical toxic male, okay, let's stop there real quick and let's talk about how my expression of gender interacts with your expression of gender. Because that's what you're saying. You're saying that my gendered living is impacting your gendered living. So let's address that. But if I'm just being a dick, call me a dick.
Yep, that's a lot more specific.
Hmm. I will say too, we have a couple fun conversations coming up. One of them we have planned for next week, and one of them we do not have planned. And I don't even know if we've talked. I think we've talked about this. Anyway, I know we've talked about next week which is I'm going to be in San Francisco visiting Jihad, the
Oh, I'm
man
very
who touched
excited
my
about this
thigh.
one. Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Me too.
I forget what episode that was on, but I hope you know the context of that story.
It was
The
the very first
man who
episode,
touched my thigh.
and I felt it for 3 days.
Oh
I
my gosh.
I don't know if Jihad has actually listened to this podcast, but if he has, I guarantee you that he will be touching my thigh on the way back from the airport. If he has,
No
and
apology,
it's
no explanation. Just
no, he'll just touch it, and he'll probably squeeze it a little and like make an eye at me just to like make a joke out of the situation, which is totally fun and fine. But Jihad has a master's degree in industrial organizational psych from Penn. He
that's
is
awesome.
he's a veteran. He was in the army. He's had quite the career, and right now he does IO work with people. And we're going to have him talk about leadership. And the reason this is related to today's conversation is specifically he's going to talk about leadership and humility, which I think is from a gendered, normative, stereotypical whatever. I don't think male leadership humility. I'm
Yeah.
so excited to hear him talk about that. And then I really want to find a woman who is in charge of a manager at a high level and have her talk about aggressive leadership. I think that would be so fascinating
Yep.
because I want to hear what a woman thinks about aggression in the workplace because and I want to hear what a man thinks about humility in the workplace because those are antithetical. I don't know, anti-something,
Antithetical. Yeah.
antithetical. There we go. To the idea of what it is to be a man or a woman with power. I love it. I love it so much.
So important. So important too.
Yeah. So that's what we have coming up. I can't imagine anyone will have anything to say about this episode.
We just spent the last 5 minutes. Anyway.
If you do have thoughts and comments, we will read every single one of them. I can't guarantee we'll agree with them. We might even talk about them not next week because this is going to come out in like a month, but we do read your comments and your thoughts and we love hearing about them. And
Yes.
I imagine it's also safe to say this is not the last time we will talk about toxic masculinity. I don't think we'll talk about it quite in the same way again, but I would love to have a conversation with you, Pete, about non-toxic masculinity.
Well, I imagine as you mentioned the idea of masculinity just being a way of being, we're going to talk about it as an underlying aspect of a lot of things: power, fear, ego, humility, optimism, aggressiveness. The masculinity will come up again.
Yes, and these are all human characteristics that women experience: aggression, fear, power, strength, meekness.
So it only
it's a
becomes
human
masculine
experience.
when it's in a man. But what was I going to say? Oh, emotionalmenpc@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram at emotionalmenpodcast.
But do feel free to we try and post stuff on the Instagrams fairly regularly. It's a quick way to get in touch with us. We've got that WhatsApp thing that you can also do. There's lots of ways to get in touch with us, and we fully understand that this is not going to take over the world. We're not going to change the universe, but we do like talking to people. We do it professionally. So if you want to talk, hit us up.
What? Well, thanks, Taylor, for another engaging conversation.
Yeah, man, I really, really enjoyed that. I have been, ever since we put this one on the calendar, I've been like, oh, I cannot wait to have this conversation.
Oh, you were chomping at the bit to talk.
I was. And I love that we didn't agree, and that's okay. And I think we still don't fully agree, but who cares?
It's okay.
We can work together. That's great.
Well, love you, Taylor.
Love you too, man. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.